Hello, we're in chapter 3 of White Fragility. I'm Mark Stewart, taking folks on this excursion into race relations. Really, it's an excursion into the mind of a far left progressive and a few, and I don't think there are many, who share the same ilk. Unfortunately, it's growing, or at least this book is growing in popularity. Hopefully, it doesn't convince many people. It shouldn't, especially because of chapters like this. Horrible chapter 3. Let me take you to page 40, where Robin DiAngelo has paragraph 2 starting, all systems of oppression are adaptive. I might be able to buy into that. She continues, they can withstand and adjust to challenges and still maintain inequality. Now, the fact that they have to adjust implies there are resistors to those systems. Good people who don't like inequality, good people who fight against the injustice of these systems. So the fact that they're adaptive means they're not strong systems because they wouldn't have to adapt if they could bulldoze everybody else. Requiring suppression is something that speaks to the goodness of all the resistors to these oppressive systems. And I want people to recognize that the most effective systems of oppression are those backed by government. That's it. Business is not an effective oppressor, because in capitalist society, a bad business gets competitors and that bad business goes out of business or has to change itself and become like the good competitors. Businesses are based on meritocracies. Look at two of them. The epitome of business that has very little regulation, sports, where your background is almost irrelevant. Your talent, your drive, that's what gets you to the top. And there is an incredible meritocracy that greatly elevates African Americans. Entertainment is another. It's hardly regulated by government. Your pedigree, almost irrelevant. I mean, who cares about whether you have an Ivy League degree when you're going into the television business? And there too, highly represented by minority actors. They're very successful. News outlets, they employ a high number of minorities, I believe because they recognize that tolerance and acceptance of minority faces and personalities is welcomed by almost everybody. And if these media journalists are an all-white monolith, they're going to lose business. So you have the beauty of choice helping society. It is only government, because it can use force, that can sustain oppression. Now here's where Robin DiAngelo really makes a bad comparison. When she talks about these systems of oppression, her examples are, quote, for instance, recognition of same-sex marriage and accommodation for people with disabilities. Holy cow! These are two of the fastest moving, good, tolerant recognition ever. I mean, certainly in our lifetimes, it was less than 20 years between the first kind of public urges for same-sex marriage to be legalized and it being done in the majority of states. Okay? Disabilities, 25 years maybe. At this point, Americans with disabilities have an almost privileged place. They are certainly not at the bottom of a heap. So I'm not sure where she's coming from, because she'll then go into the oppression against races, and I don't think that's It might have lingered longer than 25 years, but that too has been moving in the right direction. These are two examples of, I think, Ms. D'Angelo taking something in the wrong context. I already talked about her Jackie Robinson example, totally misinterpreted. And let me conclude with the final one. It's just one page later, Martin Luther King, who, in speaking publicly that one day he might be judged by the content of his character and not the color of his skin, was, quote, seized upon by the white public because the words were seen to provide a simple and immediate solution to racial tensions. Pretend that we don't see race, and then racism will end. I don't think a single white person hearing that speech, or even upon reflection, would use it to say, we have an excuse to pretend, and the racism problem will appear to go away and we can go our merry way as racists. I'll talk more about how this, I think, deliberate misinterpretation, or else just a total cluelessness about how white people view Martin Luther King, how it is dangerous in the hands of a popular author. I'm Mark Stewart. Thanks for being with me.